So currently, which you'll hopefully see in a week or so, I'm working on this bigger project about video game movie adaptations, and most importantly, Last of Us. But while I'm working on that, I of course did see the recent Mario movie, and I immediately thought, well, let's kind of make like a smaller version of the same sort of argument on why we've sort of been doing a better job recently with video game stuff. But first, let's go all the way back 30 near exact years ago in the original adaptation of Mario. In 1993, there was the Super Mario Brothers movie. Directed by the team of Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, it was a movie that was clearly more inspired by Ghostbusters and movies that don't feel like a Mario movie. Roland Joffe met with Nintendo of America president and Hiroshi Yamauchi's son-in-law, Minoru Arakawa, and his initial draft was more or less sort of this buddy comedy, and it probably would have been a better movie than what ended up. After some rewrites and this attempt of maybe bringing on certain other directors, they eventually came out with the movie that we got. Weirdly enough, one idea that they were gonna have is to bring on the director of the then released Mom and Dad Save the World, a movie with probably more accurate Goombas. At least I think so. But weirdly enough, the people that they did pick are people who just didn't really know what they wanted to do very clearly. And what they wanted to do was something that wasn't very Mario-esque. We ended up getting Bob Hoskins as Mario and John Leguizamo as Luigi, which honestly, even then, when they were a little bit more popular, it still didn't really make any sense. And though Dennis Hopper is great and I love him, why he's Bowser, or I guess President Koopa, sure, honestly, just eludes me to this day. The movie begins in a monastery where the people working there find an egg which hatches to a human baby, which ends up being Princess Daisy, because they decided to pick Daisy instead of Peach. I guess because Mario Land was around this time, and that the people who were making this movie just didn't play that much of the actual games. Very clearly. But you fast forward several years later, you get Mario and Luigi, who are plumbers trying to come up in the business, constantly being annoyed by the Scapelli brothers, who I head canonically think are just Wario and Waluigi, whose last names are that, and are rivals to the Mario brothers, whom, as the movie shows, their last names are Mario, and probably the only actually funny part of the movie.
Name? Mario. Last name?
Mario.
Okay, what's your name?
Luigi.
Luigi?
No, Luigi Mario.
Mario's either between the two of you.
There's three.
A thing that, again, I totally think is the actual last names of these characters till today. Anyway, turns out dinosaurs never died. They live underground as a race of lizard people in this vague underworld where you can find it through a magical portal that some of the people working for President Koopa come out of, take Daisy inside the weird 90s effect portal, and Mario and Luigi have to go through this weird cyberpunk dystopia to try and find them. And mostly kind of just get annoyed by President Koopa's men, who weirdly, if they fail, get mutated back into vague dinosaur people that are the Goombas. No, they aren't. One of these people, by the way, is a random bystander called Toad, because they're like, oh yeah, we gotta actually have Mario characters in this. That's probably the reason why randomly in the middle of it, they decide to have more Mario-y things. Kind of. Randomly, they have the Bomb Bomb, which is just, they kind of like twist it up. At least it's the most Mario-looking thing. But they have this woman who's Big Bertha, as in the fish. And I don't think that this fish should be a person. Why was this made? Why did we make this decision? Also, Yoshi's here, and he's just a raptor. He's literally just a raptor. He's, like, sincerely this Jurassic Park looking raptor, and I do not understand why it was this way. But yeah, after getting jump boots and laser guns, they're able to take on President Koopa, and they're able to defeat him in his big monster form after he tries to take his de-evolution way and turn all the humans into
Monkey.
It is a dumb, stupid movie. There are so many weird moments that it's clear that, like, you can see that this movie visually was inspired by TMNT and Ghostbusters with the many weird goopy stuff and this just very interesting 90s look that it has. Weirdly though, I can't hate this movie, right? For two reasons. It just has its own fun personality, right? It's the reason why I love the mentioned Mom and Dad Save the World, right? That's not a good movie. These characters aren't good, they're uninteresting, they're kind of annoying, the script is bad, it's not purposely funny, some nice looking sets at the very least, some weird but kind of interesting looking character design, that it just hits that weird 90s vibe to it, that it just is so much fun, despite the fact that this is a god-awful movie. There's so much stupid nonsense in this that tries to be this movie that is some kind of strange goofball comedy movie trying to be clever when it really isn't, that it ends up being very entertaining and just so stupid. God, is this movie 90s as hell, and it's just so fun. I grew up with this movie. I purposely asked my parents to get this at Blockbuster, and it's like, we rented it multiple times, and I loved it when I was younger, because I was like, that's Mario! But like, you know, years later, you realize, God's sakes, what was this? What was this movie, and why? I hate that I forced my parents to watch this when I was younger. But the second reason why I really can't hate this movie is because this was when Super Mario World came out. This was way before any of the RPG games or any of the spin-off stuff, where the real, like, personalities of the characters began to show. This was around the point where we had the cartoon, but what was there to tell the people making the movie? That is what Mario and Luigi were like. Mario and Luigi to them were, you know, cranky older brother plumber guy and his plucky young brother, right? That's all they had. And that's a pretty easy, like, 90s comedy movie characterization to make. That's really easy to do, so I'm not surprised that that's what they ended up doing in this movie. I think it's because they just picked Bob Hoskins, who, by the way, clearly did not care about any of this. Hell, most of the performances you can tell that nobody actually cared, except President Koopa. Because why would you? There was a bad environment on set, nobody cared, and Bob Hoskins was drunk the entire time. He barely remembers making the movie. And that's what that movie feels like. You can tell that nobody actually cared while making this movie. It just kind of spat it out, went, all right, here you go. And that's the way, you know, these kinds of movies were for a long time. That's besides the fact, because again, this was before anything really told anyone what the people were. So why would you care? Why would you care about Mario? Just a game that people played in the arcade about a guy jumping on stuff. That's all you had. And with the fact that there was nothing to go off on, what really was there to go with? And that's the reason I can't fault the original movie all that much. I mean, I can totally crap on it all I want, but in terms of being accurate, you can't be that hard on it. What did they really have to do? So you fast forward many years later, a month away from being exactly 30 years from the recording of this video, you get the newer one. Now, we are years past what the nothing there really was to adapt of the original, so how do they do it again? Let me tell you, when they announced this movie, I was not ready for it. I heard Illumination Mario, and I swear to God, I was expecting some kind of garbage trailer with, like, Lowrider being played. Like, just expecting something just devoid of passion and thought, because that's what Illumination makes. I really don't like their movies. I hate Sing. I really don't like the Minions, but weirdly, I don't hate them as much as the Secret Life of Pets. And God, don't even start me with the Grinch and the Lorax, I swear to God. But when you got to the cast reveal, I'm like, actually, might not be too bad, because we did see some of the art of the characters, and we're like, all right, Nintendo's part of it. Apparently, they're gonna have some hand in making it. So what are they gonna do? And even to, like, the point of the trailer, I'm like, this is gonna be crap. It's gonna be a little bit less crap than I thought, but it's gonna be crap, right? But then we saw the trailer, we saw how genuinely cool it was, and I was like, all right, okay, all right. And plus, by that point, they showed off who was playing who, and though I didn't care much for Chris Pratt as Mario, as nobody did, and then for me, Seth Rogen Donkey Kong didn't and still does not make sense, especially because he does the stupid laugh that they said he wouldn't do, but whatever. Jack Black as Bowser was perfect, and I'm glad they did that. Like, listen, Jack Black makes every movie he's in better. You can be a bad movie, and you got Jack Black in it, and I don't care. I will watch that movie. That's how that works. Thankfully enough, they gave him an actually good role, because he's Bowser and not President Koopa. And more importantly, they genuinely tried to make this movie feel like the game. So ultimately, when you look at the original Mario, you can't fault it too much for not necessarily following what was about these characters, because what made these characters, their personalities and their stories, really followed after in the 30 years since, right? And that's what we have now. And that's what this movie does incredibly well. The plot of this Mario movie is pretty similar, actually. Mario and Luigi are plumbers who want to find their way in life, and they're constantly annoyed by their rival, who's weirdly Spike Foreman from Wrecking Crew. That's a fun little reference, as is the Punch-Out Cafe. I'm pretty sure I was the only person who I was with who saw that knew anything about Punch-Out, so that was cool to see. But the weird old man who was with there is voiced by Charles Martinet, doing the regular Mario voice. And by the way, he's also Mario and Luigi's dad, so he gets 2 roles in this, thank God. But I would have merged these 2 characters together, and I would have, like, had him know Cranky Kong. Whatever, though. That could be for a sequel that we'll definitely be getting, so there you go. Yeah, they find a weird magical portal in the underground, but this time they get separated, and it's up to Mario and Peach, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, my absolute crush in every way possible, so I will never say anything bad about her performance in any way, for reasons. They, alongside Keegan-Michael Key, who's weirdly great as Toad, go through the multiple areas of Mario to go eventually find their way to the Kong Kingdom, where Cranky Kong is there, and he's like, I only let you have my Kong army if you beat up my son. So Mario turns into a furry.
Oh, no, I'm not a furry.
Yeah, okay.
And beats up Donkey Kong. They then Mario Kart their way to the Rainbow Road after getting attacked by Bowser. Bowser, who this entire time has been making funny songs and funny speeches, because of course when you have Jack Black in the movie, you're gonna have him sing, and his song is great. And there's a whole actual song that you can find online somewhere that he did the music video for, because he's great. He's Jack Black.
Princess Peach at the end of the line. I'll make you mine with mind bullets.
And anytime I've ever questioned his loyalty to be making a fantastic performance in a bad movie, I was wrong. Goosebumps the movie was still bad though. So moving on. And though Mario and Donkey Kong get knocked off of Rainbow Road and eaten by, I'm presuming, Unagi from Mario 64, they quickly get out and find their way to the forced wedding that Bowser had with Peach. And with Peach's help, they're able to stop Bowser's ritual sacrifice as he tries to put Luigi and all of the Kongs into lava, which, jeez. The fight does spill into the real world after they all get sucked into a big pipe where Mario and Luigi get the superstar that Bowser had from him and are able to beat the crap out of him, beating him in the way of a Kamen Rider movie by kicking him in the face to seemingly death. He doesn't die, however, he just kind of gets shrunken down, where presumably he'll be found by, I don't know, Wart from Mario 2, or maybe Tatanga from Mario Land. There's not a lot of other Mario villains that are really worth looking at. And I don't know if they're gonna hop into the RPG stuff yet. But if they did, you know, my vote's on Thoughtful, please. Please and thank you. But it's a very simple plot, but it works perfectly fine. And let me tell you, absolutely adore this movie. This movie takes what worked for Mario and Luigi, their personalities, their brotherly relationship. You got Peach, you got Toad, you got Bowser, you got Donkey Kong. You got multiple worlds inside of it that look exactly like the games, and it does a great job showing you what these games are like. It does such a great job at representing the multiple sides of Mario, both in terms of the way it looks and the characters in it, multiple kinds of Toads, multiple enemies from the games just hanging around in the world. Other characters are just sort of hanging around, just in the background. There was some Yoshis, and of course when they go to the friggin' Donkey Kong Village, there's a bunch of Donkey Kong Country stuff. You got Diddy, you got Dixie, you got
Chunky! He's dead.
They didn't have Lanky. I guess Lanky heard the shit talk they were doing in the song. By the way, when they show up, Cranky Kong is there, and Cranky Kong is Donkey Kong's grandpa.
Donkey Kong's grandfather, Cranky Kong.
Come on, Cranky, take it to the fridge.
But there's so many like aspects of the Mario world they just put into the movie that got exactly the way they should look. exactly the way they should look. And that merged with songs from the games, even if they're snippets and remixes of some original 16-bit, some 8-bit era stuff, some Donkey Kong Country stuff, right? Some Mario Galaxy and Odyssey stuff. I love it. They had the DK rap.
Walnuts, peanuts, pineapple smells, grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells.
There was a part where after Mario falls down after being beaten up by Donkey Kong, that it makes the death sound from the original Donkey Kong, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who caught this, because I know what that sounds like by heart. So, you know, it's clear this movie was made by fans, for fans, and is exactly what I'm looking for in this kind of thing. We are 30 near exact years from the original, and we finally get something that way better represents Mario. Suffice it to say, I did love this movie. And though it does have its problems, like the fact that it was just paced weirdly, it felt stuff that just kind of kept going and going without any like room to breathe. It really should have, it could have done better at expanding the characters and their story arcs, which they kind of present as a thing. If they just slowed down a minute and they just let it happen, you know, if they just kind of let things happen, just slow down a little bit, have them speak, would have been neat. A couple rewriting of some lines would have helped things a little bit, and a little bit less just like licensed music out of nowhere. They had Aha, Take on Me in the middle of it, which does not fit. They should have had Van Halen Jump. Why didn't they have that? Why didn't they have Brass Monkey? You know, they had No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which fit, but no Brass Monkey for the Kong scene. It was right there. Brass Monkey, that funky monkey. Brass Monkey Chunky, that donkey monkey. Regardless, you do see my point, is that ultimately the reason why we get a much better adaptation of Mario is because we're many years later. And in modern time, people really know what to do for a video game adaptation. As I kind of go into a little bit in my bigger video of The Last of Us, the reason why video game adaptations have been much better in recent times is because people really know what to put in these movies now. People know what works for these movies, what can be cut, what can get shoved in there, and they figured out two things. And it's in a bigger kind of game, you really do need that time in the same way that a player has to just slow down and sort of live in that character, which is the reason why TV shows just work much better, especially in the case of The Last of Us. A whole other discussion for another time, but there is video games that can work as movies, that don't need to be shoved in, put out quickly as a movie form, that doesn't really fit as much, like Uncharted, that genuinely shouldn't have been a movie. Though it could be a movie, it's probably one of those bigger games that are closest to being a movie, just due to the fact that it was inspired by movies like Indiana Jones. That's more the case of what works best for video game adaptations is really just do your own thing with the characters, but try and keep who they are on a base level. And that's what works best for stuff like Uncharted or like Mario. Mario doesn't really have a plot. It's very simple. But when you do your own thing with it and you have these characters and you stay true to who they are in terms of their personality, their movements, and their world, you have something that genuinely works. And when you get people who know what they're doing, who are clearly fans, please, then you have what people want to see. And more importantly, they realize that the best ones are the animated ones, which has basically always been the case. Not that every animated video game adaptation is good, because that's not always the case, but it's more the case of even the bad ones are better than the most of the good stuff from the live action video game movies. And that's the reason why this movie is as good as it is. It's made by fans. It's made with people who genuinely care. It's made with this fantastic looking animation that is vibrant and vivid. It's all over the place, yes, and it's a little bit simple in terms of its plot, and probably could have done something a little bit different in places and slowed down, but this is so much better of an adaptation of the Mario characters and or than what we got 30 years ago. Big Bertha isn't in this, but if she ever was show up again, I hope she'd be a fish. It's fine if she does talk though, and is sassy, because that was cool, but she should probably be a fish. But what didn't work in the original in terms of just suddenly throwing in things that were vaguely video gamey, like, oh, well, they do the jumping, so you give them some rocket boots. But like, No, just have them jump cartoonishly in such a way that makes sense. Just have things naturally exist in this weird magical world that give them this stuff. You don't need stuff that makes it logistically make sense. This is the reason why animated stuff just works better, because unfortunately even modern day live action has a problem in trying to make things look realistic. Like, yes, X-Men, I do want weird yellow leather laced characters because that's what I've come here for. I did come here for two goofy plumbers from Brooklyn who jump around, hit giant cartoonish sentient turtles and whatever Goombas you're supposed to be. 30 years later, I still do not know, and don't even get me started on Galoombas. Why do they have shoes? But taking all these different areas from the corners of Mario, bringing it together and making this cohesive world that just works for what this is exactly what I wanted to see. You just play it straight, you have good, funny writing. That's what I want to see out of Mario. Video game movies in general, right? To just be a well-written thing that just takes the game stuff verbatim as best as possible and doesn't try to make it too movie-y, which has always been the problem of movies have to be a certain way, and have to follow certain trends, and you have to have it be like this because every action movie in the 2000s and 2010s and 2020s are like this. Just no, dude. That's not how the game is. Just make it like the game as best as you can in like a 2-hour format, or I guess the hour and 30 minutes that was this movie. Weirdly short this movie was. Yes, we are 30 years after the original, and we have learned so much in terms of how to adapt video games into movies and TV shows especially. At least I hope so. Learned what works and learn what doesn't work. And not everything is gonna be perfect. I'm not gonna tell you that movies in modern days are so much better and are the best movies of all time. But there's a reason why the stuff like The Last of Us and this recent Mario movie works so much better than they ever have before, because people are finally figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Hopefully they put out what works. I hope they keep doing that. As I'm making this, they just announced Twisted Metal. I hope that ends up fine. If not, I'll probably make a whole video about how wrong I was. But whatever. Anyway, this has been my big review of the Mario movie. Both of them. I do still absolutely love the original for how stupid it was, but it's not what I want out of video game stuff. And I really prefer stuff like the recent Mario movie. I'm super down to see a sequel in the future, probably having Daisy. If she shows up with a laser gun, I think that'd be funny. It's a little homage. I'm pretty sure when Mario and Bowser fight in the real world in this one, they end up in this construction site that I'm pretty sure is supposed to be a visual reference to the original. Could be wrong, but what do you do? Regardless of what they do and who they bring in, which is apparently going to be Yoshi, as seen in the post-credits scene, which I made the people I was watching with not see, because I was like, there's no way it'll be there any post-credits scene. Let's just go. But more importantly, whatever that is, I'm totally going to be down to watch it, and I just want to see more really good adaptations. We've been having like great video game adaptations in recent times, and I just want more of that. Hopefully we can really continue on that string, and more movies will be as good as this one was, and hopefully better even, right? But the fact that this was the quickest and highest grossing video game movie ever, we're totally gonna get a sequel, so I'm ready for whatever that's gonna be, and hopefully more Nintendo properties. Whatever Illumination's making next is Duck involved, and I really wish it was just Duck Hunt. Just call it Duck Hunt. Just legally find the way to call it Duck Hunt, and just put that dog in it for a scene. I do not care, right? That is good enough for me. Being that it's about hunting ducks anyway, I'm pretty sure they're gonna have a bloodhound, and that dog doesn't have a name, so just, I don't know how animation works. Recolor it for some of the scenes that it's in, if it's gonna be in, I guess. I don't know. Make more Nintendo movies, point being. But regardless, until whenever the next time I talk about video game movies, which will hopefully be in a week or so, whenever this comes out, make sure to watch that. Go ahead and subscribe and check all of that out. Check all my other videos. Make sure you leave a like on this one and leave any comments about Mario movies and video game movies down below. If you all enjoyed it, great. But most importantly, stay good, stay safe, don't be an asshole.